Well, good morning, distinguished guests and colleagues and partners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on what we believe is a vision for coal's sustainable future and on the role of cooperation in shaping that future. And I know that there's probably going to be a real reflection on the word sustainable as we move forward. And certainly when I became chief executive of what is Future Coal Now in 2019, the industry was quite simply vilified and the media declared coal's elimination. But banks and governments raced to adopt those exclusionary policies, and for many the question was not if coal would end, but when. Over the past 5 years, I've cautioned against that ideology. Coal was never going to disappear within the decade. Investment was never going to collapse. And above all, billions of people in developing and emerging nations were never going to be denied their right to affordable, reliable, secure energy and the foundation for lifting people out of poverty and placing nations on the path to prosperity, as we've definitely seen China utilize and certainly India well on this path. Today, reality is catching up, and the International Energy Agency, who once confident about peak coal, now concedes that demand will plateau with no visible decline in sight. Electricity use is surging, driven by mass electrification, expanding air conditioning and heating, and the rise of energy-intensive data centers powering artificial intelligence. In 2025 alone, global demand is expected to grow by more than 3%, with coal remaining the single largest source of power at 33%. And these realities confirm what coal producing and consuming nations, especially those in the ASEAN, have always known, that coal remains the anchor of energy security, the foundation of growth, and the pillar of industrialization. And as I said, those 5 years ago when we started this journey for me as the CEO, words like energy affordability and security were just not spoken about. So it's quite important that across this region, coal has empowered economic and technologic transformation. And this is actually quite positive and almost role modeling what needs to happen in the future. As we well know in this room, in Indonesia, nearly 50 gigawatts of coal power underpin the economy, including more than 11 gigawatts from captive plants that supply the energy directly to industrial zones, contributing over 20% to GDP. And these plants shield manufacturers and essential services from grid instability, preventing losses exceeding in the billions each year. And to sustain this growth, Indonesia plans to add almost 27 gigawatts of new capacity over the next 7 years. And this is of most interest to the Western nations that I meet with in terms of governments around the world. And most of that, as we know, will be through captive power. Elsewhere in Vietnam, the Power Development Plan 8 and the Philippines' expansion of coal for stability and Malaysia's responsible transition pathway all show and demonstrate that reliable, affordable power is just non-negotiable for competitiveness and jobs. And that's why cooperation matters between the ASEAN, with its mosaic of nations, cultures, and faiths, and like-minded organizations such as us, Future Coal. In 2017, we began our journey with the ASEAN Center of Energy, and our goal was really to inform and educate governments, investors, and the industry at large. But it was really in 2020 when our partnership deepened with a renewed MOU and two landmark reports, one highlighting coal's role in the ASEAN's contribution to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and another about clean coal technologies in the ASEAN, showing that investment in modern coal technologies can cut emissions and at a greater scale than many alternatives. I want to be very clear that certainly for Future Coal, this is not a question of choosing renewables over coal, but this is, or any baseload for that matter, but this is really about focusing on what is important, what is affordable, what is secure, and what is reliable, particularly in terms of baseload power. And these studies have informed governments, policymakers, and financiers around the world of coal's potential when supported by sound policy and targeted investment. And they also demonstrate the cooperation which drives the innovation. However, and sadly, not all institutions kept pace. In 2021, we saw the Asian Development Bank proposing using concessional finance to retire the ASEAN coal plants, a plan that was completely detached from regional needs and energy realities. ASEAN's coal fleet, as we all know in this room, is the youngest and one of the most efficient in the world, averaging just that 13 years. Retiring it would have wasted billions in productive assets and, more importantly, undermine regional energy security. So today, the rest of the world is beginning to see what the ASEAN has long understood. In the United States, and I just come from recent trips there, once among the loudest advocates of the coal phase-out, the government has now committed $625 million to modernize and upgrade its coal fleet as part of its drive for energy resilience. And a lot of that funding will go towards actually upgrading on pollutant control and high low emission technology. And at the same time, the exclusionary finance models are also collapsing. The Net Zero Banking Alliance has formally closed its operations after majors exited, proof that the financial systems cannot run on this type of ideology. And around the world, investors are rediscovering what we have always said, that responsible investment, not divestment, delivers real progress for economies, societies, and the environment. And that reality brings us to the responsible way forward. And in Future Coal, we call that Sustainable Coal Stewardship, or SCS. SCS is built on this very simple idea that progress is not about abandoning the resources, but using them responsibly. It's a framework shaped by governments, companies, and communities working together to deploy these proven technologies, cut emissions, and most importantly, unlock new value across the coal value chain. And China is well on this path, and India follows closely behind. Importantly, SCS is also about learning from one another. Asia's efficiency, the United States' innovation, and Europe's experience, and applying those lessons in ways that meet each nation's unique challenges and opportunities. And that is the spirit of cooperation that defines the ASEAN. Diverse nations united by shared purpose and pragmatic action. And it is the same spirit that we hope you will see defines SCS. And to show what this looks like in practice, I'd just like to share a first part of a 3-part video which introduces SCS and the technologies which drive transformation across the coal value chain. So we'll just cue to the people that are going to help me with. Could we please show the first part of the video? Thank you. As you've seen just in this short snippet of the video, our industry is harnessing cutting-edge technologies from autonomous haulage and electric drivetrains to digital twin operations and precision monitoring. And these innovations are improving efficiency, reducing costs, and minimizing environmental impacts. And certainly across actually the world where these sorts of opportunities don't necessarily immediately exist, we see there's a desire for more collaboration to really upgrade and modernize our upstream practices. Across the ASEAN, mining has long been that catalyst for development, building infrastructure, schools, hospitals, creating thousands of jobs. This is the same across the world for producing and consuming regions of coal. And our joint report with the ASEAN Centre of Energy on coal's contribution to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals shows that our industry continues to prioritise some of those main issues like health and education, and it empowers those communities and strengthens opportunities across the region. So coal's contribution, even in this area of pre-combustion, is undeniable. So let's just move to the second pillar of SCS, which is combustion. And this highlights advanced technologies that can capture and reduce up to 99% of emissions, including CO2, while providing the reliable, dispatchable power that modern economies depend upon. And now, if we could please play the second part of this video. Thank you. As we're aware, probably more in this region than anywhere, people don't really appreciate, and a lot of the criticism of coal is really based on old technology and not understanding where the new technology is or what efficiency in coal combustion can actually bring to the table in terms of better environmental performance. And again, another joint report with the ASEAN Centre of Energy, Clean Coal Technology in the ASEAN, found that if we upgraded those older plants to ultra supercritical technology, we could avoid 500 million tonnes of CO2 by 2040. And as we would be able to do all the maths ourselves, that's the equivalent of removing 25 million cars off the road each year. So across Asia, this transformation is already underway, and China is at the forefront of this progress, operating coal-based carbon capture for nearly 20 years. And its Longdong energy base will soon be the world's largest coal CCS facility, capturing 1.5 million tonnes of CO2 annually at less than USD $30 per tonne, which is less than half the cost of carbon permits in Europe. And in Japan, JERA shows us that they've been able to achieve 45% thermal efficiency and completed the world's first 20% ammonia co-firing trial, a breakthrough in low-carbon dispatchable energy. And now in India, coal gasification is scaling rapidly, producing high-value products while capturing carbon and supporting national self-sufficiency. So now, in the final part of this video, we look at the exciting developments and many of the areas that actually investment community, and particularly those in the Western world, don't appreciate about the contribution, the wider contribution of coal to beyond combustion. Can we please play the third part of the video? Thank you. And whilst many of those industries in beyond combustion are known to us, there's so much more that's turning byproducts into high-value materials. And innovators around the world, particularly there are leaders actually in the US, in this field. And researchers at the University of Wyoming have now built a home using coal-derived char bricks that are lighter, more insulative, and lower in emissions than conventional materials. The US Department of Energy's Coal to Cars program is developing coal-derived carbon fiber for lightweight vehicles. A single ton of metallurgical coal is worth about 200 US dollars, but it can be transformed into carbon fiber worth up to 11,000 US dollars. So as demand for critical minerals grows, research shows that coal ash could also supply key elements for electronics, defense, and renewable energy. And in the United States alone, the recoverable value of these minerals is estimated at about 8.4 billion US dollars, 8 times the current reserves. So coal is also contributing to securing ASEAN's food supply. And across Asia, coal gasification is producing hydrogen for fertilizer, helping to stabilize agricultural import costs as natural gas prices fluctuate. And low-rank coal and its byproducts can also be used as soil additives, improving water and nutrient retention and reducing dependence on traditional fertilizers. These for drought-prone regions. This means restoring degraded land, strengthening harvests, and obviously building greater resistance and resilience. So the innovation is already here. The technology is mostly proven. And to realize coal's full potential, we now know that we must work together. And if we do fail to act on the technologies and opportunities already available through SCS, we do risk not just higher emissions, weaker grids, and slower growth, but we risk that contribution to our global communities to really expand and keep, and for those of us who are not fortunate enough to have that modern life that we've so come to enjoy. The future coal will be defined, though, by collaboration and by nations and industries who are willing to work side by side to deliver energy security, economic progress, and also the environmental results. These are not things that we need to seek in isolation of each other. These are things that we can do together. So today we will renew our partnership with the ASEAN Centre for Energy, which reflects that shared commitment to continued progress through innovation, cooperation, and trust. I really look forward to working with the ASEAN to now push forward a new vision for coal, called Sustainable Coal Stewardship, or SCS. I truly believe, as someone who's been in the industry and been the public global advocate for coal in a time where we weren't always received well, but now we're being received a little bit more pragmatically. I look for that future. I know that the word sustainable has many different new meanings for lots of people and perhaps has been overused. But what's most important is that we continue to benefit our global community. We all have more in common than less, even in this crazy world that we live in. So this, for me, and for Future Coal, and for Sustainable Coal Steward, is the responsible way forward. I thank you for your time, and thank you to the AV team for helping me with those videos. Thank you.
That's okay. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, Mr. Manook, for delivering the keynote address for this session of Vision for Coal's Future. Now we will meet you again during the closing ceremony for the MOU. So yeah, thank you everyone. And this closes the session in this room, but we have other sessions going on in another room. So if you have time and you're interested to know others thing about the energy in the region, please do come to other rooms. So once again, thank you everyone and see you at the closing.